Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I would like to show you my M111 race engine I'm building at the moment. You see it here. This is the engine which will finally replace the OM605 in my race car. And I'm doing this because I want to make the race car lighter and behave more agile. Because the last year I was driving my M104 Turbo a lot in daily use, and I pretty much enjoyed the performance level and the characteristic of a turbocharged petrol engine, and I wanted to have the same level of performance in my race car but also have it lighter. So not the 6-cylinder, because I think this is too heavy on the front axle for a race car. So I chose the 4-cylinder, and yeah, these engines are known to take a lot of boost, but of course I made a lot of modifications to it to handle even more. And I would like to show you in this video what I did and what parts I used, and give you a detailed view about that engine. Let's talk about displacement first. So the base engine I'm using for this build is a 2.3 liter, the supercharged version, and not the Evo version. You can always see that on the shape of the intake channels. The Evo, so the more modern version, has different shapes here for the intake and also a lot of other modifications. But this is the older one, and I was actually very lucky because I had someone offer me a very special crankshaft for this engine. A crankshaft which has a travel of 95.7 millimeter, and that is a lot. So it's a long stroke crankshaft, and together with the bore size of 91 millimeters, this engine will have a real 2.5 liter displacement, which is cool, kind of cool, I don't know. I'm very curious to find out how this performs, and it's somewhat unique, so I always like unique things. So I'm happy to have this crankshaft and to try out how it will perform. Sometimes people tell you that you can use a diesel crankshaft to gain 2.5 liter, but that's actually not true. There are companies out there who also offer 2.5 liter builds with the diesel crankshaft, but those normally only have 2.4 something, and they normally round it up very generous and say the engine has 2.5 liters, but it's actually not true. And so I'm even happier that I can make a real 2.5 liter. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show you the crankshaft on video, but I have a picture and I will put it in the video now. There you see how the crankshaft looks, and it's very much different from the normal crankshafts you have for this engine, because it has balanced weights on both sides of the rods, and normally you only have that on one side. And this made it somewhat complicated, because when I put this crankshaft into the engine block, it collided with the oil squirt nozzles. So I had to find a special solution for that. And what I found is that the diesel nozzles, because I had a lot of them lying around, they perfectly fit into the bore on the M111 engine, and I could use those because they're smaller to prevent a collision between the nozzle and the crankshaft. So this was lucky, and I'm very happy I found a solution, because I didn't want to lose the piston cooling, the oil squirt nozzles, because I think this will be very important for this build to have the temperatures under control. But yeah, that's about the displacement. For the rods, I had to use BMW rods. It's also kind of weird because the crankshaft had a different pin size for the rods and used like the BMW pin size. But this allowed me to actually find a rod length which, together with the pistons, which are M104 3.6 liter pistons, forged ones, will give the perfect length, and to have like a ratio of, let's say, around 8:1. And so this engine is perfectly prepared for a lot of boost. My target is to have like 2 bars at least, and we will see how this performs. To also prepare this engine for high loads, I of course used some high strength studs. So for the crankshaft I used a stud kit from ARP. I will also have this in my online shop. And also for the head assembly I used some studs. Those are special studs, to be honest. I have a stud kit for the M111 in my online shop which fits perfectly. But I had a stud kit for the M104 lying around, and I thought a longer stud will be good because it stretches more, and therefore there will be not so much clamping force loss over time. What you always have to do is to re-torque your studs, so you can prevent that. You always have to bring the engine to operating temperature and then re-torque your head studs. But this is something you have to do always. But with this special kit I have a little bit more stretch and I think it could help. But those were mainly the measures to make this engine more stable and more robust for high loads. But other than that, the engine is so robust itself from stock, you don't actually have to do much. So you don't actually need a girdle plate or something like this, or higher grade material valves or something. You can just use a stud kit, put some forged rods in and also some forged pistons if they're available, and then give all the boost you can. And that's what I will do and what I will try. Also, what was changed, I used a bigger oil pump. I took this from the OM606, but not the whole pump. I just used the front housing part and assembled a special oil pump for this engine. So it has more oil flowing through the engine because for the turbocharger you need to take away some oil, and therefore I thought it will be good to have a bigger capacity oil pump. Then of course everything was rebuilt, so the block got honed and surfaced, also the head. And for the cylinder head I ported the channels myself. This was a lot of work. I didn't go crazy on the sizes, so I just took, I don't know, it's hard to say numbers, but I took some material away, widened the ports, but not crazy. But I think I will get some gains from that. And because this is a turbocharged engine, you can always crank up the boost to get more power. But of course, a nice ported head will always help to get more power and to have like the other parts of the engine not so much under stress. Then what is still missing, of course, the cams. They're ordered. I'm still waiting for them to arrive. It will be Debila's cams, so also those I have in my online shop. I think they will work very nice. And I also used the dual spring. The dual spring you already know from the M104 builds, but with the M111 it's kind of special because the M111, I don't know if every M111 has that, but This one had the valves with only one groove around to secure the spring plate. And in this case, if you don't have the 3 grooves like the M104 has, you need to order different, I'm not sure what the parts are called, the 2 locking pieces for this plate here. And because the angle of this part doesn't fit to those special plates here from the M104. Yeah. There's many small things I had to change. I also ported the water channels because normally on the M111 the casting here is very rough and very edgy, and because I had so much trouble with cooling in the past, I took a big focus on like every port and channel that has coolant running inside. Also the pump and this engine part here, I almost ported anything I could find to have every fluid running smoothly through the engine. And what I also showed you already in the last video, the oil cooling, because the M111, it's very tricky to implement an oil cooling, because the oil goes from the pump directly into the filter housing, and then from there directly down and into the oil gallery, which goes to the bearings. And it's hard to fit something here to get the oil running through an oil cooler first. We had something developed here to screw it in to the oil filter housing, but I think it's not the best solution, because when you exchange the filter, you always have to unscrew the whole connections, hoses. And I think with this solution, it's the easiest one. And I will try to make some cool control for this with sensor feedback, so you don't have the pump running all the time just when you need it, and save some energy. So what did I miss? Special pulley in the front, a lightened pulley, and also a smaller diameter to also don't overrun the pump and the generator. And then for the clutch kit and the flywheel, I will have a special solution made, which is not done yet. I still have to design that and get it manufactured, but there will also be some cool parts which I can sell in the online shop afterwards and after I tested it. Yeah, so what's the goal for this engine? So I will build a nice turbo manifold. This will be one of the next steps. And then I still have the turbo charger from my OM605, so the Garrett G30 660, which should be good for around 500 to 600 horses. And this will actually be my goal. So 500 horses will be my target on the engine. On the wheels, this will probably be like, I don't know, 450, 440. But I think for that weight the car will have afterwards, this power level will be absolutely perfect. 450 horses on the wheel, and I don't know, a car that weighs around 1,200 or even below. Let's see, I will put it onto scales after everything is done, and I will also measure the power. But yeah, I might have missed some things, but I will keep you updated on the process of building this engine and also the race car itself. And I hope this wasn't too dry of a video, too much talking and not showing anything. But yeah, thank you for watching everyone, and see you in the next video.